And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could be with us, both for our audience that's tuning in on Amazon Live, as well as tuning in on social media as well. We're glad to have all of you with us as well. Excited to welcome out there Kris Clink to our program today. Kris is going to talk to us not only about her writing journey, but also her brand new book. You guys can see it there. Sissy Client is Completely Normal. You can see my copy there. We're going to remind you how you can be able to get your own copy of the book and stay connected with Kris as well. Also, if you guys are just now following Kris, who also will tell you guys about her podcast as well that she has. Excited you could be with us, Kris. I'm going to go ahead and connect with our audience on Amazon Live. Make sure that they can see us okay, and we'll go ahead and start with the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, the pleasure is definitely on mine. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Thanks.
I'm going to do a quick little housekeeping trick here just to make sure we're all good. And for our Facebook audience, I see you guys already coming in. Appreciate you guys. If you have any questions or anything for Kris, you can be able to add those into the chat. We'll remind you of that through the conversation as well. And we're excited now to bring in our audience on Amazon Live for this episode of Cyrus Webb Presents. You guys will notice the book that's highlighted in the carousel below is a book of our author we're talking with today. We're excited to welcome author Kris Clink to our program. She's celebrating really a great literary journey, but also her new book you guys can see there. Sissy Client is Completely Normal. And I was just saying to Kris, anytime we see normal in the title of a book, we know it's going to be someone who's going to be like us, that's relatable and maybe a little bit crazy. So we'll get into that with Sissy a little bit as well. If you guys are just now finding out about Kris, you guys will see her other book that's also in the Amazon carousel. Feel free to click on that as we're having this conversation with Kris. Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This is an honor to be here, and Amazon has been super supportive of my journey. So thank you.
Well, look, we're glad to have you. So I want to talk about the journey for you because I've read this book. I have not read your first one, so I'm going to have to go back, Kris, and read it. But the great thing about that is it is a great standalone story, even though it does give us a character that other readers have gotten familiar with. So what has it been like for you to see the way that people are responding to the new book?
It's been great. I kind of took a chance because when I was going to write the second book, I looked at more obvious characters, people that had bigger roles in the first book in Goodbye Lark Lovejoy. And Sissy was this kind of quiet character. She was only in like 2 scenes. She's married to Caleb, who's just this horrible man. and I felt like I kept trying to start that second book and I kept getting drawn back into Sissy's story. And I wanted to know more about her. I wanted to know how, you see people and you go, why is she with him?
Yeah.
And why does she stay with him? And, it's all way more complicated than love. I mean, sometimes it is love, but usually it's way more complicated. And I needed to know why. And in digging into this, I learned things I didn't know when I wrote the first book. So it was really fun. But yeah, Sissy's life, normal is what you think it is at the time. Normal, we all kind of think we're not normal, but what normal is our normal. Right.
Yeah,
and for Sissy, anything that goes wrong, her mother will try to fix it. And when she can't, she'll say, well, it's just completely normal. It's completely normal that you're a 16-year-old girl getting married and pregnant. That's normal.
Yeah.
We, throw some sprinkles on it and make it good. And that's what she does.
Yeah. And that Kris, I think is the cool thing about this story because, I mean, the book is in part funny. It's definitely relatable, and I mean that sincerely. But I think it's also reflective of, like you said, of life. Because even as we're able to see the evolution of Sissy throughout the book, and her kind of having these real-world emotions that aren't always too nice, we know what that's like, too, to have those not always too nice thoughts about someone, especially if we feel like we've been slighted by them or in a situation that we're out of control in, that someone else is we feel like it's put us in. Do you think that also is part of the relatability that readers are feeling with her?
I think so. I think she's I think all of us at some point, at that point between 16 and 19, we really don't know. And usually even after that, we don't really know what we're doing. And, it's almost like somebody pushes us on the train tracks and says, run. And we don't know that we can just move over a few feet and we won't be on the train tracks anymore. But instead we're running to stay out. We don't want to get hit by that train. And we're not really aware of what all's going on. And I think that's Sissy's just, she's like all of us, that at 16, you think you're bulletproof and you think you are going to live forever and you can play and have fun. And in Sissy's case, that play gets her in trouble and changes her life forever.
So let's go back, because we're going to talk about the way you chose to write this story, Kris, which is in first person. So we actually feel like we are Sissy in this journey, which is really frightening at times. But so I want to go back, because if our audience is watching this, they'll notice it says book 2 of the Enchanted Rock series. Where did the idea for this series come from?
Years ago, I went to San Antonio, and one of our daughters asked us to go to Green, this tiny little town. It's not spelled like green, but it's pronounced green. And it has one of the oldest dance halls in the country that, still existing. And it was like 2 p.m. Went to lunch, go over there, and the floorboards bent underneath my feet when I walked in. And I told my husband, I don't know what the book's going to be about, but there's going to be a book that is written around this scene. And, I really hadn't spent that much time in the Texas Hill Country, but that's what drew me there. That I wanted something that I could honor that scene and in the spirit of the people that lived around there, because, this is an area where, German immigrants came in, the 1800s and settled it. And the German families are still there, some of the same families. And so it's just there's a lot of family heritage. There's a lot of family pride. And so, as we all know, with families, they're complicated, sticky. Yeah. There's good and bad, and good intentions get us in bad places. And so it just lent itself to that. It lent itself to the families. And so it was a lot of fun.
And I wanted to make sure I asked that question to you, Kris, because I think it's a great connection. Like I said, I haven't read the first book, but in this book, family is such a big part. Do you think that kind of is one of the main ingredients of you as a storyteller, being able to explore the complexities of family?
Absolutely. I think family comes in so many different forms. You've got your chosen family, you've got your, the family that you were born into. Sometimes we don't even speak to part of those families. And it's all, family is complicated. It's like a blessing and a curse. It's how we get here, but it's also what damages us sometimes. And so, in the first book, we had a woman who went back home after she lost her husband to ALS, and she thought she was going to go home and lick her wounds. And, it wasn't really the case. Everything had changed, including her parents. And so everything she thought she was going home to was different. And, that was fun for me, because it allowed me to take these parents who are, in their 60s, and give them a little spunk and let them grow a little bit, after they're in the empty nest years. And so that was really fun. But it also allowed me to take her story. Her story merges with a guy, a 27-year-old who's back from Afghanistan. He's lost his leg after an IED incident, and he's dealing with a lot too. And in her trying to understand his situation, she uncovers a lot of family secrets and a lot of like pain that has been secreted away because from her dad being in Vietnam. And it's because of that she gets to explore that. So that was really fun too. It's just fun peeling back the layers. We make all these assumptions. We see things from afar and go, oh, we think we know about them. We think we know what their story is. And it's really fun to take it apart and find out. And in Sissy's case, you mentioned the first person. In the first book, it's written in second person. And it's got the point of view of the male character and the female character. In this book, I started it as third person. I thought, we really need to get in her head. We need to know what she's thinking at 16. How is she dealing with, finding out she's pregnant, and now we're going to get married. And so that was something that I felt kind of made the story, was us being able to get in her head and understand and see how she sees her family and those relationships.
Yeah. And I want to talk about strengths, because I think that comes up in an interesting way with her, even with her age and everything else. I want to say, for those who are just tuning in, you're watching Cyrus Webb Presents, primarily here on Amazon Live. I have highlighted in the carousel on Amazon the book that we're discussing that you guys see there. Sissy Klein is Completely Normal. and we have Kris Clink, the author of the book here. Also, you'll notice right next to that, I'll go ahead and highlight it there. You'll see the other book by Kris there, Goodbye, A Lark Lovejoy. You'll see it there also in the carousel. And this book is available in different formats. You guys can be able to get it from there as well. I want to talk about one of the interesting things for me that I made a note of. Kris, I knew I wanted to talk to you about. Kris and I have a couple of conversations that we're having today. So I'll go ahead and mention this one, Kris, from chapter 25 of the book. And it's an interesting conversation between a sissy and her mother. And it has to do with the idea of basically just surviving. There's that great scene that you wrote where the mother is basically saying, you know, who's going to get us through today? There's something that's happened, you know. And Sissy's response is, we're going to do it together. I want to talk about the strength because even though there are things that do come up, serious things, what was that like for you to explore the idea of them not being alone in dealing with it?
Well, I think you know, when you are at your rock bottom and you're desperate, you reach for those people that you trust. And in Sissy's case, even though she doesn't always show her mother the respect that probably her mother would like, I mean, all parents feel like their children don't respect them like you know, but you know, I think that she trusts her mom to be there for her and have her back. And that's why she reaches out to her. And I think there's strength in being able to rely on others, but also, you know, to be there for others as well. And I think later in the book, you see that she's there for her mother in a different way as well. So, you know, you just, you know, I think we're all doing the best we can with what we've got. And a lot of it is you have to trust that the person next to you really does care and, you know, that they're operating out of their heart and their best intentions.
Yeah. Is this, as you mentioned, she had such a small part, it looked like in the first book.
Mhm.
Did she evolve for you, Kris, the way that you thought she would? Or did Sissy even surprise you as her story evolved in this book?
Oh, she totally surprised me. I didn't see it. You know, she surprised me at the beginning when she found out she was pregnant because,
Okay.
you know, in a way she's a little numbed by it, but she also pushes forward. And at first she kind of fights and is like, I don't want to be pregnant. And I don't want to do this. And I don't want, you know, I don't want to be hooked up to a breast pump. And, you know, she's 17 years old, I think, when she gives birth. And so, you know, she shows incredible strength there. But when that tragedy hits in the middle of the book,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I really saw her, like the horse was out of the gate and I couldn't catch up. I mean, she was like, I'm not going to be sitting here being the passive observer anymore. I'm not going to have my mom and dad take care of me through another crisis. I'm going to be in charge. And man, was she.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the interesting things that readers will see. And it goes to the point I was making earlier that she's having to deal with real grown up thoughts and feelings of what is she going to do? What does she deserve? You know, and how is she going to be able to move on? I think not only just through life, but even through her own mind and her own thoughts about herself as well. I want to broaden out for a bit, Kris, and talk about you again as a storyteller, because one of the things that I had noticed when I prepped for this, and you brought it up earlier too about your podcast, does this past seem almost inevitable for you that you would be someone that would be sharing stories or using a platform to speak to others this way?
You know, I didn't know the platform, but yes, I've always felt like I was made to be a storyteller. From the time I was very young, I wanted to be a writer. When I was in college, I didn't want to study English because I didn't want to read Chaucer and stuff that didn't really fire me up, but
Right.
which I should have, but I didn't. And I went a different route, but it took me a while to get here. And when I was 46, my husband says, "Hey, Christy, when are you going to write that book?" And I was like, and that was the book. That was the Goodbye Lark Lovejoy book. So, you know, it took me a while, but I got here, and I feel like now I could never go back and not do this. This is what my life's journey has always been, writing. And I told my husband, told my family for years, someday when I quit my job and I write, or, I thought that's what I had to do. I didn't realize I could have done both. So, it's exciting. And I think, I wish looking back that I would have had the confidence to know I could do both. I could write and work and, explore other options.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting sissy connection there as well, though. I think because realizing that she could have happiness and still be able to, enjoy life on her terms, not necessarily, I think, on what other people would think would be right for her, which goes to something you mentioned earlier, too, Kris, about normal, because I tell everyone I'm crazy. Uh, you know, but I've gotten so used to my craziness. It's normal to, you know, I
Exactly.
mean, but
That's your normal.
so when I meet people that aren't crazy, I'm like, what's wrong with them? But I think that's part of the connection you feel with Sissy is that it's like she's going through all of this stuff, and it's like, and you're still expected to look okay on the outside, and to be everything to everyone, while you're going through the chaos of it all, right? And I think that's the cool thing. So I want to talk about readers because I guess we should mention we're still in a worldwide pandemic. I guess so. It's an interesting time, for book releases, but we're glad that things are opening up and things. So, how have you navigated this as far as connecting with readers with this release?
I have, I've reached out as far as book clubs go. I've got a couple
Mhm.
book clubs that I'm going to talk to. I'm going to zoom into. I actually have one live event in Bernie, Texas, which is in the Texas Hill
Oh, wow.
Country.
Oh, nice.
Um, I'm assuming it's going to be a masked event. I'm immunized and I have my booster now, but
Yeah.
who knows what I'm carrying, and I don't want to make anybody else sick. Um, but mostly, social media and reaching out to other authors. The author community is incredible, and
Mm.
I don't know how I do it without people. My author homies, Kristen Higgins and Bethany Crandall, and I mean, there's just so many of these ladies, Leah De Cesare, and I mean, so many of them just they've got your back when on those days when you feel like, how are we going to do this? There's a pandemic. How am I going to promote
Yeah.
this book? And
Yeah.
they're out there helping you promote it. And it's just, they're, they're great. They're great people.
Well, speaking of Bethany, Bethany's watching us actually on Amazon Live. So, Bethany, hello to you. Bethany says, such a lovely story of hope and love and second chances. Totally agree with you, Bethany. I mean, there's so many great things. I mean, the book is fun, but again, it is so real, which is what makes it again fun because it is so realistic for sure. So talk to us then about the podcast then, because like I said, I was excited about that when Anne Marie when she first pitched the book to me when I saw that you had a podcast. Talk to us about how the podcast came about.
A long time ago, Kristen Higgins told a group of authors at RWA that, there's always room at the table. Like there's no
Yeah.
reason for us to compete. People are not going to read one book. They're going to read
Mhm.
hopefully hundreds of books. It's
Right.
not like we're all, trying to sell the same red car. And so we need to support each other. And, she's just been such a fabulous example of that. And so when I had been thinking about doing a podcast, something to help new writers, but also something that would attract book lovers so they could get the behind the scenes of the books. And so I thought about what Kristen said about, and she said, well, why don't you do something to help those new writers? And I thought about the writing table. We all sit around the writing table. And so I have had so much fun with it. I've had a couple agents tell us about what it's like on the other side. I've had Lemony Snicket. Oh my gosh, he was the
Hmm.
coolest.
Hmm.
Probably still is the coolest. I've had all different genres, children's books from to horror books, and I mean just a little bit of everything. And it's just been so fun to find out what those authors are thinking when they're writing those things and what's next, and to get their advice. And everybody, different things work for different authors, so it's really fun to get that feedback.
Right. And I think too the other thing about it, Kris, and it goes to what you mentioned earlier about the support. I think to know that you're not, because the writing process can be a lonely process, to know that
Yeah.
you're not alone in everything that goes along with it, the feelings about
Yeah.
it, and the business side of it, even, which can be stressful in itself, for
Mhm.
sure. So, what has that been like for you to have not only readers that you've been able to entertain, but also authors that you've been able to inspire?
Oh, I mean, I don't know that I've inspired any of them, but I do, I try to pay forward what I've received. And it's lovely when an author that you respect reads your book and says nice things about it. I mean, like Bethany, you know, she blurbed my book, and it's an honor. I mean, it's humbling.
Well, it's a great journey. So I have to mention this because if I don't, someone watching this, because since the book is literally right in front of them, right there, it does say book 2. So does that mean that we should expect more?
Yes. I'm pretty sure we're going to see another one.
Okay.
That's all I
Okay.
can say.
Okay. All right. There you go. And I'm not one to push, so I will leave it. I will leave it at that. Again, everyone, Kris Clink has been our guest. We've been discussing her newest book. You guys see it there. Sissy Klein is Completely Normal. For those joining us on the Amazon Live side, you'll see you can get the Kindle edition for only $1.99, or of course, you can get it in print as well. Also, make sure you guys are staying connected with Kris. So, Kris, where's the best place for them to find you?
They can go to my website, krisclink.com, and I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook too. Kris Clink Books.
So make sure you guys are staying connected with her. I think we already have her tagged on Twitter and on Facebook for our audience. For those joining us on those platforms, part of this will be airing on Instagram as well. So we'll make sure that we tag Kris there too. Kris, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Well, look, the pleasure is definitely all mine. And we thank you, our audience, for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.